How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here. Welcome back to another video. So it's time to start taking a little bit of a look at some of the professions for the War Within. Now, I've been playing with these on the beta for a few days now, and I think I've got my feet on the ground. I think I'm getting a good understanding of the direction that Blizzard are taking these professions. And the TLDR is that they're all looking pretty good. The direction they're taking, it's looking pretty good. The concept is very similar. I'm going to make some assumptions with this, I'm going to make some assumptions that you've at least played with the Dragonflight professions a little bit if you're watching these videos in the early days. Now, of course, let's not forget this is early beta. There are many weeks still left for things to change and for things to update and improve. And some of the professions are looking further along than others. But let's start with Jewelcrafting. Have they changed anything conceptually with Jewelcrafting? The answer is no, not really. Jewelcrafting is looking to be much of the same. We're going to be doing some crushing. We're going to be doing some prospecting. We're going to be making some intermediate items such as vials to then presumably go and sell off to all of the alchemists. And for the most part, the main focus on this is in the cutting of the gems, which has not differentiated too much. So our job as a jewel crafter hasn't really changed. So what have they done improvements-wise? Well, one significant change they've made is with prospecting. I feel I should address this nice and quickly, as this was a bit of a point of contention in Dragonflight. Prospecting doesn't have a skill window to it anymore. There's no skill required to prospect per se. You do have to spec into prospecting still. We'll get to that in a minute. But for the most part, you're not worrying about fighting towards thresholds. There's no real significant advantage from prospecting by being a Draenei, which gave you the +5 skill, which did magical things for you in Dragonflight if you used it correctly. This time, you take your ore and you prospect your ore, and when you do such, out will pop some gems. You do see we have things like resourcefulness that will kick in if you have your tools and stuff selected, but there's no skill, and you can see that what we're getting via prospecting is pretty much what you'd expect. Some pebbles, which are mostly going to be a bit of a byproduct. We have our glittering glass, and very occasionally you'll proc a gem or two. This is all sort of very normal. One thing to say about prospecting, though, is when you are first starting, you are trashed here at prospecting. I apologise if you can hear my coffee machine gurgling away in the background. The prospecting is terrible. You are useless at it. Your results are really, really poor. You very rarely get actual gems out of it. You can see we've gone through 100 ore just in this, 20, 30 seconds, and we've not really had much other than just trash out of it. The odd occasional sapphire. Now, you do have to spec pretty heavily into prospecting to get any good at it. You have to go quite deep into one of the trees. We'll talk about the trees in a minute. But it's designed to separate players a little bit. It's designed to mean that if you choose to spec into prospecting, you can become good at prospecting, and other jewel crafters are not. This means you'll do the prospecting, and then you'll take all of this stuff and you'll throw it on the auction house and you'll sell it to other jewel crafters. This was a concept they tried for in Dragonflight, but didn't get it quite right. It's nice to see that they're separating things a bit more, making a bit more of a distinction between the different sort of spec choices you can play with is cool. Let's talk about gem cutting, though, because gem cutting is one of the big things. One of the big things that jewel crafters are known for, right? Any gem cuts, you can take any rare gems you get, you can then go and cut them into your secondary stat gems for the most part. And you'll notice here there's no awakened order or any sort of elemental material, which for me is a really good thing. This means that we as jewel crafters are actually going to care about jewel crafting components again when crafting gems. Anybody that played with jewel crafting in Dragonflight will understand that, well, 99% of the time you care about how much your awakened order costs you, and if you can get that cheaper than your competition, you're halfway there. This time we care about the gems, how much we pay for the gems, how much we can get these gems for. We're also going to care about getting our crushed gemstones at the best value. And there's also these engraved gem cutters. These are something that we as jewel crafters can also make ourselves. And the likelihood is that with a pretty high recipe difficulty, you might need to spec into making these at the best quality as well to fully optimize everything from every angle. Now, to be aware, a lot of the recipe difficulties and even the quantities of materials at this point are not finalized. They're not fixed in any way, shape or form. This will be a bit of a trend you'll see in these videos, that things are still a little bit unpolished. They still have work to do in quite many areas. But cutting gems, it seems to be a little bit more to the old school method where we actually, surprise, surprise, care about the raw gem price, which is nice. I like to see that. We can, of course, if we're missing some skill, we can use our concentrate ability to make up the difference. So if you are struggling from a material standpoint early on in the expansion, your concentration can help you with that as well. Inspiration is apparently going to disappear. It's going to go away. So if you can, whatever quality you can guarantee the next quality if you choose to use some concentration on it as well. That concept is going to be apparent with nearly everything craft. Let's look at one of the other things we can craft, though, that's going to be super important for jewel crafters, and another direction we can go in is the jeweler's setting. The jeweler's setting this time is slightly different. You can see by the tooltip here, it adds one socket to an amulet or a ring, and a jewelry item can have up to 2 sockets. Now, quick maths on that means that each individual player out there, each character, might be looking to buy 6 of these. These are going to be quite expensive, and they're going to be quite expensive for 2 reasons. Nullstone is a rare gathered material. We can prospect this as jewel crafters. It prospects very well, but it's also apparently rare enough that it's likely to be quite expensive, and it might be so expensive that we choose not to prospect it. We might prospect lower quality materials instead. But the main thing is this blasphemite. If you haven't been looking into the War Within at all in any way, shape or form, you will hear this being thrown around in conversations all the time. Blasphemite is our diamond for this expansion, but we as jewel crafters don't have access to it naturally. We actually need it from alchemists. Alchemists, they transmute this. Consider the Dracothist in current days. The Dracothist is basically being replaced with a blasphemite. There's a cool new little system being introduced to alchemy to make these. But these are also going to be pretty aggressively limited. And we're going to need to buy these in. So this is something that's going to be a cost for us. We're going to buy these in, but we might also need to try and get some nullstone for mining. And the marble stone is mostly a byproduct from converting some of these pebbles we get from prospecting as well. These are going to be big business. These are going to be big business for sure. And of course, if everybody is putting 6 of these in their gear, then that means they're also likely going to want to buy 6 gems off us as well. So it goes to show that jewel crafters are going to be eating pretty well, I suspect, at the beginning of the expansion, as they usually do. Jewel crafting is historically a pretty good profession in most expansions at most of the time. Just quickly, as it jumps into my mind, talking about sort of what other players want, at this point, we cannot tell if there's going to be an elemental lariat situation. Yes, we do get to make some jewelry. Where is it on the list here? Yes, we get to make some jewelry. At this point, though, it's way too early to tell if any one of these is going to be super duper mega popular, like the elemental lariat, and cause every man and their dog to want to buy one off us. So it's a little bit hard to tell at this point, but be aware. We do make jewelry again. We make endgame gear again. There's a possibility at some point somebody might decide that they want this, and we can be there to provide it to them. Talking about PvP stuff as well, just very quickly as well, we do make some PvP gems. They are differentiating between regular gems and PvP gems. These are going to have more PvP orientated bonuses, which is quite cool. They do require this bloodstone, which apparently is acquired by doing some PvP content. Presumably these might come through as work orders. I've not dug deep enough into the profession to decide out how that works, but because they're bind on pickup, I assume that if PvP players out there want these, they're going to have to put work orders in for them. Let's talk about our meta gems, though. Meta gems were via work orders in the War Within, and this time they are, fortunately, not. We take these blasphemites again, these are our diamond, and we can cut them into these sort of unique equipped gems. They all give your primary stat, and they give an extra little bonus as well. Luckily this time we can throw them on the auction house. There's no RNG involved with crafting these. I know anybody that's tried to get one of these via work orders in Dragonflight will understand the frustration sometimes involved of getting one at the wrong quality or it not working the way you expect it to. It should be far more easy to get your hands on these because they'll just be on the auction house. But of course, once again, using these Blasphemites, expect these to be quite expensive. Crafting these well could potentially be a good place to use your concentration, to use some cheaper materials to keep the costs down, but to push it into the maximum quality potentially. Some thoughts going on here for sure. Let's take a very quick look, though, at the spec trees, just to showcase how these look, because Blizzard has come out and said that the spec trees are nearly done. At least at face value, they look pretty much done. There are a few nodes that are still a bit buggy and they don't do what they say they should do, but the concept is here. We have 3 trees as a jewel crafter. First tree is going to be gems. This is your gem cutting tree. You can spend huge amounts of points in here. I think I counted it to be somewhere in the region of about 400 points to fill this entire tree. So if this is the path you plan to go down, expect to be farming those knowledge points weekly, dumping them into here. And it's quite a simple system, this one. There's nothing really that jumps out that's too fancy. Other than you just spec in the different directions and unlock the different gems and then become better at making them. There's no surprises, no tricks, nothing particularly fancy here. The Jewelcrafting tab, middle one is a little bit smaller, a little bit neater, a little bit more easy to get your head around. This is going to be where you're going to focus if you want to become better at crafting those amulets or those rings, or even the profession accessories have been snuck in here as well. Big if we do end up with an elemental lariat situation, some points in this middle tree, focusing on those might become quite important. And the final tree, the one that's actually most interesting to me, honestly, is the shaping tree. This is where we focus on the prospecting. This is, I mean, there is a couple of side hustles here for glasswork and for masonry, figuring out what to do with that glass and what to do with that stone that we get via prospecting. But for the most part, it's all about becoming better at prospecting. You can take certain ores and you can crush them more effectively. You'll get better results from this. You can start finding crushed gemstones equivalent to the quality of the ore that you prospect. That's going to be a nice little way to get access to some of this crushed gemstones, as we talked about earlier. Procking some of that directly from prospecting is an interesting twist. And when you spec into searching for each different type of gem specifically, there are some small bonuses and increasing your chances of finding these when playing with certain ores. Regarding jewel crafting, it's an entire topic of itself in which I will focus on a little bit more in the future, so stay tuned for that. But the TLDR is that jewel crafting so far is looking pretty good. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. They've not rocked the boat too much. They've kept it relatively close to what we would expect it to be. And I think at this moment, it's looking pretty good. The demand for a lot of the stuff that we make early days is going to be pretty good. The gem sockets is going to be the big one. And of course, the gems that then go in those. And it's likely to see 1, maybe 2, possibly even 3 very differently spec'd jewel crafters in the early days. One that focuses on making gem cuts and in turn then has to buy a lot of their gems from other prospecting spec'd jewel crafters. And there might be that third option of people who focus beeline 100% straight to making the best amulets and rings on the hope that we have another elemental lariat situation. But time will tell. So yeah, I'll leave it there for this one, boys and girls. I don't want these videos to be too long. We will do deep dives into certain sections of these going forward. We've got plenty of time on our hands now that we have a release date for The War Within. We know that we, at least at time of recording this, we've got about 70 days before the game goes live. So plenty of time for them to change a few things, tweak a few things, and to do a couple of update videos if necessary. But give this video a like if you enjoyed it, boys and girls. Consider subscribing if you are new around here. And I'll catch you all next time. Peace.